for joining us today and being here for the second day of the 2025 Tadaima Community Virtual Pilgrimage. My name is Hanako Wakatsuki-jong, and I am the Executive Director of the Japanese American Museum of Oregon, located in Portland, Oregon. And I'll be the moderator of tonight's panel titled Our Future Depends on Remembering, Uplifting Youth Voices. So for those who are watching us live, if you have a chance, please put in the chat where you're tuning in from. So we created this panel because many of the narratives that we see in the community are made by our elders of this community. The Sanseis are third generation or older. And there recently have been more contributions in the storytelling from younger Nikkei like Kikuhu's, who was just on a panel a few hours ago on Tadaima. So today we are going to speak with two young seis, or anyone who's a yonsei or younger, who are working with their own storytelling through graphic novels. At the Japanese American Museum of Oregon, we are working with Kira Sato, a young rokusei, she's a sixth generation Japanese American artist, to support her in creating her vision of a historic fiction novel, graphic novel that is based on her family's wartime experience in Hawaii. We also have Maria Okuma Johnston with us as well, a professional artist who recently published a graphic novel on the friendship of Norman Mineta and Alan Simpson, and who is mentoring Kira on this manga project. Thank you both for being here with us tonight. And also, I guess, this morning, because Marie is actually tuning in from Japan. So we'll kind of get started. So to both Marie and Kira, tell us a little bit more about yourself. So maybe we'll start off with Marie.
Great. Thank you, Hanako. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. So as Hanako said, my name is Marie Okuma Johnston. I'm tuning in from Kita Kyushu, Japan. And a little bit about myself. I studied cultural anthropology and music, as well as getting my master's in university administration. And after many years of working as a university administrator, I had the opportunity to kind of pivot my career path post-COVID to start looking at kind of how I could start kind of engaging with my creative side more. I had reached kind of a point of feeling burnt out and wanting to just kind of find where I could work professionally and kind of engage in not only my creative side, but then engage more with like the outside world. I really wanted to kind of see how I could work outside of an office setting and be able to kind of continue my passion for anthropology and storytelling. And so I've worked on the Japanese American Incarceration Hanafuda project, the Norman Mineta Al Simpson graphic novel with Heart Mountain, and then many projects with the Minidoka Pilgrimage Planning Committee.
Kira.
Hi, like Hanako said, I'm a rokusei. I'm a high school senior in Portland, Oregon. And I'm actually, although I'm a rokusei, I'm the first generation of my family on the mainland. My family's from Oahu and Hilo. I don't have a lot of experience. This is my first art project I'm doing, but I'm super grateful to work with JAMO on it. As a high school senior, I'm working on college applications right now. I really enjoy working within the Japanese American community. I love to volunteer at Ikuinokai, and I love working with the JACL.
Great. So let me contextualize this panel a bit more for the audience. So we're kind of talking about this manga project that came about through Kira actually reaching out to the Japanese American Museum of Oregon of having an idea of how she wants to kind of do a manga project based off of her family's history and how she's interested in drawing, but she's also wanting to learn a little bit more about, drawing and formatting and storytelling and that aspect. And so it was actually really cool that she was willing to come up to us and ask us about, potentially supporting her in this project. And we ended up finding a funder to help basically seed this project to help support Kira in this initiative, to also then help us then hire a mentor for Kira. So we have Marie helping her out in this project. And I do want to tell a little bit more about the story where as we're getting close to starting this project, I know Kira, you were kind of a little bit nervous on doing this project where she actually reached out and was like, well, maybe we shouldn't do this. You shouldn't give money and invest in me because I don't even know if I'm good. And I remember having a conversation with her where if, I said, if we actually worried about the quality of work, we would have asked for submissions on, samples, drawing and stuff. We just want to support her. So that's kind of how this all came about, where ultimately I do feel like as an institution and as a community organization, we need to support our young community members and some of their ideas and how they want to kind of explore their own identity and how they want to do storytelling. So this kind of goes then into this other aspect of, what got you both interested in doing graphic novels? I think first we'll start with Marie and then we'll have Kira speak.
Yeah, growing up and splitting my time between the US and Japan, I was introduced to just like manga at a very early age. When we moved from Japan to the States, it was 94, but then when we first visited again was 97. And at that time was the Pokemon boom. And so growing up, Pokemon was like the first thing where my American side and my Japanese side finally felt like it was coming together. So I would spend all my time just like reading the original Pokemon manga, as well as the manga adaptation of the TV show. And then I would just sit there and like draw all the time. And I would draw like my own little doodles, my own little sketches of Pokemon doing miscellaneous things. And so I think that was kind of like both my early introduction to not just my interest and passion for like graphic novels, animation, storytelling, and all of that, but just also like one of my early introductions to art. And so, it was always a dream I had in the back of my mind. And then when the opportunity came with Heart Mountain, I was just like, oh my God, it's actually going to happen. Like, am I actually going to draw a graphic novel? So it's been a great way to kind of explore my own cultural identity in addition to my just like different artistic endeavors.
For me, I got super into like anime and manga during the pandemic when there wasn't much to do, and I got super inspired by that art. That I actually asked my parents, and they bought an iPad, and I started drawing on that. But I've also always loved storytelling. I used to write a lot of fiction stories when I was younger, and I used to draw like little comics in school. My art was never very good, but I just loved telling stories. And for this specific project, I just got really interested in the stories my dad would tell about our family history. When he would talk about like these crazy things I like never knew about incarceration and how my great great grandfather was a detective, or how my other one went to Stanford, and I was like, whoa, that's so cool! I didn't know that, and it just made me want to learn more and tell that story.
Well, that's a great segue. Kira, can you kind of show us a little bit about some of the stuff that you're working on as you're developing the story and what you want to present to people?
For sure. So this is one of the character sheets. This character is based off of my great great grandfather Max. He lived in Hilo, and he actually worked on a sugar plantation before he became a police officer and then a detective. During World War II, he had a really interesting experience, and that's why I wanted to tell a story about him, was because as a Japanese American detective, he was recruited to arrest people from the Japanese American community as a translator. And I imagine like that was really hard for him. He would give away his clothes, and sometimes he would come home without anything but really like his underwear. And I thought that it was really brave of him. And so I kind of wanted to communicate that story. He the reason that he did that was not because he wanted to, but because he had to support a large family. So I thought that his story was really interesting. And to learn more about him, I talked to my grandfather. I got connected with my great-great aunt. My great aunt, who is the last of his children, which was also super interesting. And he was a tough guy, so I wanted to kind of characterize him that way. And then the next one, this is my other great-great-grandfather. He was a bit younger. He worked for the Japanese Chamber of Commerce in Honolulu. And he was incarcerated, which is why I also wanted to incorporate his story, because my two great-great-grandfathers have very different but also similar stories, and I thought that they would integrate well and that they both deserved to be told. He was arrested in the spring of 1942 for his position that he held, and also because he was a dual citizen with Japan. For him, I wanted to get to know him more, so I talked to my grandmother, and she gave me a lot of really cool resources about him. I got to see how he was a woodworker. He was really crafty, really handy. He did that even throughout the camps. And so she showed me this toy train that he made, which I was super inspired by. And she just had like a big box of his things. I've got a book from him and pictures. His original character design was very different. I didn't have any photos of him, so I based him off of a picture of his father that I had and his son, so a combination of the two, until Hanako got me the files for Tetsuo for his incarceration, and I was able to see a photo of him, so his design completely changed. I added his glasses, but that was really cool to see. The next one, I've been working with Marie a lot on developing art. We've been practicing perspective. I've been using a lot of reference photos and doing a lot of research over the past few months to trying to get the era right. And so I feel like this picture kind of shows that. I was trying to research historical accuracy. For these kinds of pictures, I like to take photos everywhere I go. Sometimes just at Minidoka, when I went on the pilgrimage, I took photos there. When we visited a Nikkei museum in Japan as well, I took photos for reference, and honestly just random photos of my friends, because they're great for poses reference. And the last picture here this was me experimenting with more of a painting sort of style. And this was another example where I used my own picture that I took in Hawaii. But this is just kind of sort of the experimental area, and then we're starting the actual layout right now.
Wow. So, Kira just actually sent me those images earlier today, and it's definitely, you kind of created this world that now I could imagine, right? And seeing from how your first like developmental sketches from what you first sent me early on to now, it's really improved, and I'm excited to actually see see this manga get completed. But Kira, you're talking a lot about Marie and how she's mentoring you. So Marie, can you kind of tell me how you structure this mentorship program and how you're trying to get her the skill sets that she needs to complete this project?
Yeah, I would say so. Our first meeting was, I think, February of this year, when we first started working together on a weekly basis. And with working with something as big as a graphic novel, and after getting to know Kira and, having her talk about her art style, was something she even mentioned earlier in this panel when introducing herself. One of the things you said, Kira, you were like, "Oh, I used to draw all the time, but my drawings weren't very good." And I said, "Well, let's boost confidence then. Let's start with some of the foundations. Let's talk about why we draw things a certain way. Like, let's really explore art." Even though I haven't received a lot of professional training or like academic training or anything like that in the art world, there are still different foundational elements that are available either through YouTube or textbooks and things like that. And so I thought, well, let's spend the first 6 months or so just really focusing on enhancing what our style is, how we want to approach background paintings, all the different schools of thought on doing background painting. Same thing when it comes to what are asking Kira, like, what are your favorite mangas? Let's pull up photos of them. What are elements you like from each one? Let's, experiment with taking some element of each of those styles to build your own style. One of our first activities early on when we were learning how to do figure drawing was to take photos of Olympians, and I said, you're going to draw some chaotic drawings of your relatives doing some very athletic things, and it really kind of gets you out of your mindset of that kind of overall stiffness of, well, everyone has to be very poised, everyone has to be very straightforward. But then it's like, well, let's just have some fun. Let's get to know your family members as characters as well. Let's get to know them in your own art style, and let's really explore different ways in which we're able to take a look at how you want to approach just design. But then on top of that, I really wanted Kira to meet with just as many people as possible who work in any sort of narrative work. And so Kira's met with a published author, a creative writing professor at Stanford. We were able to meet with someone who has a film and screenplay writing background. Kira also had the opportunity to meet with Kiku. Jamie Ford also met with Kira, and just how everybody approaches their creative process and different considerations, because everyone has a slightly different approach. And I think the more information you receive, then the more you can make an informed decision on what exactly is going to work best for you. And so really that first early element was to just see what's out there, and just kind of see how there wasn't a lot of limits on what the approach could be, and that there's no wrong approach for doing things. There's just kind of your approach and what works best for you, and kind of being able to let Kira claim, this is going to be my approach for this, or this is going to be my style. And I got inspiration from the following people. I think that's so important. And as we've establish all these different foundational elements, now we're starting to lay it all out on the paper and start seeing it all come together. And I think the final parts will be, small edits and things like that. But I would say that Kira's done a fantastic job, with all of the early foundational elements of art that we have been exploring and studying together.
I really enjoy Marie's teaching style. It's really cool. She's not like, you have to draw it this way. She's like, let's develop your style and let's practice in these really fun ways that I can relate to, because she shows me pictures from Haikyuu examples or Jujutsu Kaisen examples, which is actually, it's really fun working with her.
Mentioned that you're going to speak with professionals in the field and
other artists or authors coming in. So Kira, can you tell us what are the highlights of that and meeting all these professionals?
It was really cool, the different perspectives that they gave me, because I talked to a lot of really talented people. Jamie Ford really helped me with my writing and developing my scripts and giving me different ways to think about the writing process, as well as Mr. Holbert. And he actually gave me a different perspective on how to view the story as not just, I thought of it as storytelling, and he also sort of thought of it as a tragedy, which I had never thought about before. And I just thought that was really interesting to look at it from different points of views and develop it from there. And then also Kiku Hughes really helps me. And I also got to talk to a script writer, and they both helped me with how to develop the speaking parts and the layout, and their inspiration was really cool to hear too.
As a follow-up, which sorry, Kira, I didn't really prep this for you, but like where are you at right now in the process of this manga project?
We spent a few months just practicing the basics and getting some character sheets done, but now we've started finally doing the panel layout. I'm blanking right now. The storyboarding, and which is really cool to see it all come together, because I feel like all the prep work that we've done up until now, we're finally getting to see it like pay off. So I've actually sketched out the first page and done the line art for that, which was really exciting. Something I didn't realize about that process was how much planning went into it. I think we had maybe 8 different variations of the layout and different panels to use, which, I mean, it was really helpful because we finally landed on one that looked super good, I think. But it was just not what I had expected, but in a good way.
Okay, and I do want to tell some of the folks in the audience, if you do have questions, please feel free to type them in the comments, because we're going to be getting into a Q&A in a little bit, but just want to prep you all for that. But let's kind of shift a little bit, talking about our identity. So Marie, you're a Shinnikkei. How do you approach telling a story that's not your own personal story about, like, when you're talking about the incarceration experience or some of the work that you're doing? And how does that make you reflect upon your own identity as a Shinnikkei?
I've reflected on this a lot, especially during my extended trips in Japan, and talking to people about what I do in the US, especially with a lot of my artwork and a lot of my freelance work being in the scope of the history of the Japanese American incarceration. And I think when I've talked to other Shinnikkei, they've told me that they've been nervous about stepping into this space, because they say, well, it's not my history. I don't want to overstep. I don't want to, I feel like I shouldn't go in there. I don't want to feel like I'm talking for somebody. And for me, as someone who doesn't carry the generational trauma of the incarceration, I think it's important to acknowledge when I do have capacity where others may not. And talking to one of my friends who used to be pretty involved in the Nikkei community and stepped back, to quote them directly, they said they felt a little incarceration out, where they spent so much time in all the different spaces that they started to really burn out. And so for me, I recognize that I don't get that level of burnout of reflecting on my family's traumas. For me, this is I hear people's experiences, I hear people's stories, and I try to find ways, supportive ways, to help elevate those and to help connect them internationally even, so that we can just kind of continue telling stories that people may not have told their own family members, where family members may say, oh, this is something that I've always wanted to share, I just don't know how. And I love being one of the people who just says, oh, okay, let's talk about different ways of how can I support you in telling that story. And that was huge, working on the graphic novel about Norm and Al, because a lot of them learned about, when I was talking to the Minettas, they were saying that a lot of this Norm never talked about. And so they learned a lot about Norm in the graphic novel itself. And it's almost like creating memories for a family. And I remember sharing with them how much of an honor it was to be able to provide that for their family. And I think as a creative and as an artist and someone who's Shinike, especially reflecting on the Issei experience and thinking about what are cultural elements that I have by being born in Japan and growing up, splitting my time with Japan and then coming into American culture and navigating that. What could that have looked like, back when in the late 1800s or the early 1900s? What could that have, that experience been like for people coming over? And thinking of, well, how can I use that lens to be able to reflect on potential stories that may have been lost that Issei haven't passed on. And so I think it's a very delicate area to be, and it's a place that requires a lot of not just reflection, but a lot of like reflexivity and a lot of care, to just make sure that you're holding the utmost respect of just the narrative and people's experiences, because these are real lives, real stories, real lives, and real legacies that you're working with.
Well, and I like your connection about like how you're talking about Norm and his family. And this is kind of help filling in the pieces. Kira, you're trying to, even though it's a historical fiction, you're trying to tell the story of your family. And as a rokusei, like, how are you finding doing this research and developing, this narrative and this story and how you want to present it? And how is that affecting like how you connect with your ancestors or affect your identity in this?
That's actually my favorite part of this project, is getting to connect with my family about it, because like Marie was saying with Norman, a lot of my family members also don't really know what happened because it was never really talked about. So like when Hanako got me the files for Tetsuo and I was looking through them, I showed that to Tetsuo's son, and that was like a really cool way for us to connect because he had never seen about that or heard about that before. And in exchange, he told me stories about what his father was like. And it's also sort of connected me to more distant relatives who I don't think I've talked to in years. And it gave me a really good topic to connect on, which I thought was really cool. And I love telling their story because I think, that honoring our ancestors is really important, and remembering them because they worked really hard for us. And that's what inspired me to do this project in the first place, was I just wanted a way to thank them for what they endured and how they gave me a life today where I can not worry about food like they had to, but where I can really pursue my passions and advance my education. And like you said, although it's historical fiction, I really do want to incorporate true things about them, their characteristics. So that's been a real highlight of talking to people, is that even though the characters aren't exactly true, and I did stylize how they looked a little bit, it's been fun learning about them and adding true things about them. Like real quotes from my great-great-grandfather that my grandma has told me, which was super interesting, and real aspects about my great-great-grandfathers, like their height, I want to make as accurate as possible, and just their personalities.
Well, I kind of want to go back to one thing that you're talking about where you said once you got the Tetsuo's file, which I do want to do a shout out to Julie Abo, who then helped us scan all of that so we could send it to you. And you're able to reconnect with some of the family on that side of the family side, right? But as you're going through it, what were a few things that surprised you as you're like learning about this ancestor of yours?
Well, one thing for me was the photo was really cool to see. That inspired me on his character. But also, there was stuff that, like I mentioned, my family didn't even know about. Things he was involved with. I guess the interview is where I really found out a lot about him that we didn't know. His sort of views, his political views, his attitude toward the war, and yeah, I guess how he approached that interview.
Okay, sorry, I'm gonna put you on the spot one more time with a different question that I didn't prep you for. But could you kind of tell us an overview of what the storyline is going to be of this graphic novel? Just kind of, as much as you want to share.
Yeah. So another reason why I made it historical fiction was because my great-great-grandfathers lived on 2 different islands. So in order to put them in the same story, I had to take some creative liberties. But so it follows the lives of both of my great-great-grandfathers, Max and Tetsuo. And well, like I said, one of them is a detective and one of them was incarcerated. So they have paralleling stories. And the main scheme is that there is a spy that they're trying to catch, and they have to end up sort of working together in order to do so. I think that's the main overview.
Okay. Do you want to, could you tell them like the end part, or is that supposed to be the surprise?
That's
Like,
supposed to be a surprise.
okay. Don't want to ruin it for the folks online. So yeah, I guess we'll just move to the next question. So, Marie, as you're working with Kira on this project, you're watching her develop, as both an artist, as a storyteller, as a rokusei, understanding herself. What do you want Kira to get out of this project and this process?
I think the number one thing I want Kira to get out of this is just joy, absolute joy. To have fun, just have so much fun with it, to be able to have fun with the storytelling, to have fun with being able to connect with family, to when you draw somebody hundreds of times, you connect with them in like a kind of a unique way. And with it's kind of a way to really bond with individuals, especially when you're working with historic fiction or historic works. And so I think just the overall excitement of being able to have that just very special connection that a lot of people don't get to experience, because it's really unique. And I remember feeling that way after working on my own graphic novel. But then I also would love to just see Kira be like, yeah, I did that, to just be able to look at something with just so much pride and to really see that accomplishment, because that's absolutely huge to do, especially during, during high school, and not just high school, but your senior year. There's so much that happens in your senior year. And so to be able to just name that and celebrate your gifts and your skills, is just something that I really look forward to seeing you grow in. I think I'll even look at my own work and be like, well, it was okay. But I'll still be proud of the accomplishments that I have been able to do. And I just really want you to not burn out, just enjoy the process so much and enjoy the experience, because this is something you'll be able to talk about forever.
And I mean, like you said, I have really developed, I think, a connection with the people I'm writing about that I wouldn't have had otherwise. But it's really cool because I've never met these people, but I still feel like this is a good way that I'm able to tell their stories so that the rest of my family knows it, not just the readers, but the rest of my family.
So I guess as a quick follow-up, Kira, is like, you remember when we were talking earlier, early on in this whole endeavor, I was like, if you decide that you don't want to do this, that's fine. Or if you enjoy it, that's fine. So you think you're enjoying it and you want to continue in the art world, or is this like, maybe it's just one and done?
I think I'm definitely enjoying this experience because it's brought me with a lot of connection to my family and to some really amazing people like Murray. But art, I definitely want to continue art. I'm not sure what form it'll take in the future. Right now, I'm still trying to experiment in a lot of different realms, but I'm sure that whatever subject I end up pursuing, I'm sure that I'll be able to incorporate art in some way.
Excellent. And then, Kira, what do you want people to learn from your graphic novel? Like when it's all done and hopefully it's published, what do you want people to get out of it after they pick it up, buy it, read it? Yeah.
I think one of the first thing was just to spread more awareness about the Hawaiian incarceration, since I've actually been talking about this project to some people and they were like, oh, I didn't know Hawaii had incarceration camps as well. So I think that's an important thing. But also, and I've been doing college applications, and I had an essay question recently that asked me about if I had something that I'm passionate about that I would talk about if I had a huge audience. And I thought about it, and I thought about what I was interested in. And I kind of decided to talk about honoring my ancestors like I'm trying to do. And I figured out that what I wanted to say was that we should remember them and remember what they've done for us, because we've only come so far thanks to them. And so I guess another thing that I want people to feel from my story is that we should thank our ancestors. And it doesn't have to be huge. I'm working on a project, but it can just be as simple as thanking them, or I think they'd even feel good if we just took advantage of the opportunities that they gave to us.
Right. So now we're going to move over into our Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, you're more than welcome to put it in the chat. So we have a question from Monster X Potato. With this project being worked on right now, where do you see yourself within 5 years doing related to art or outside of art? So I think that's for Kira, but then maybe Marie, you could answer too afterwards.
I think, again, I'm still exploring, but I do like doing art, and I'm really grateful that I've gotten to expand my skill set a lot within art. So I definitely want to continue, but I don't know, again, what kind of career I'll be doing, but I do want to incorporate art in some way.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I very fortunately have received an opportunity to study at Kyushu Sangyo University for a year, funded by Fukuoka City Prefecture or like International Exchange Foundation. And during that year, I'm actually going to work with animation faculty, and I really want to explore the idea of producing animations to tell just untold stories, starting with stories from the incarceration. And so I'm hoping that in the next 5 years, I'll have whole animation thing going. So we'll see. But, you know, I'm excited to kind of explore this new medium because I think it's something that hasn't quite been explored as much. And I think it's a kind of a different way and an accessible way to view history and to interact with history.
Awesome. Well, I hope that all works out because that sounds great. Kira, we have a question specifically to you, but I think I'll also ask Marie later too. But Kira, do you think you'll want to mentor younger generations as you get older?
I definitely do want to help younger generations. Like Hanako was saying earlier, I think it's really important for our community to help uplift and support their interests and their passions while they're still young. So I would love to support in any way if I get good enough to.
And Marie, like I know you've always been kind of mentoring a lot of folks, but I assume would you still continue doing it? Like I hope it's a yes.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny because even in 6th grade, I was part of a buddy program for where they buddy you up with a 1st grader. So my mentorship career started very young. But you know, I just think it's so fun to work with just young minds. You know, even though it's it's funny because a lot of people be like, "You're young," and I'm like, "But even younger minds." I think that there's a lot of joy in seeing people have maybe like mentorship or opportunities that you didn't get to have, or to really see people's development and identity development and growth. And so I think mentorship is just so exciting and so fun.
Awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions, but just with this conversation, it gives me so much hope. Just to know that, we need to support the next generation, and that the next generation is finding their voice and telling our community stories and keeping the memories alive, whether it is the Shiniki community or the Youngsei community or whatnot. So I just have so much gratitude to you both for being here today and on this panel, and to the audience that is watching. Oh, let's see. There is a question that just came up. Would it be possible to publish this project in Japan to increase awareness of the Nikkei diaspora experiences within Japan? And that's from Legal Power. Potentially, I think I'm working on opportunities to try to find funding to eventually get this published, but I'm not going to count it out. So hopefully, Kira could be an international bestseller. We'll see where that goes. But yeah, with that, don't forget to join us tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific for a Sansei meetup, and at 4 p.m. Pacific for a program on community connection commitment, the new Nikkei West, and at 6 p.m. Pacific time for a program on the Manzanar Baseball Project. So you can find all the links online at jamtadaima.org under the 2025 Tadaima schedule. So thank you all for joining us today, and good night.